I had a queasy feeling in my gut when I heard about her new partner. He clearly believed he was superior to me, as if he has some inherent quality that I lacked. It lowered my self-esteem and made me nervous. The more I reflected on my own identity, though, the more I saw that being the best isn't a prerequisite for success. Being pleased with myself and my progress is at the heart of everything. In ways I had never anticipated, my brilliance began to show through. I felt stronger and more assured. I wanted to teach him what true strength actually means. What happened next not only startled him but also transformed the way I looked at love and success forever. After everything happened, I saw I needed to comprehend my path through betrayal and heartache. But I still believed love was worth the risk. I felt like my entire universe crumbled when my relationship with David ended. I began to doubt my value after being deeply affected by his deceit. After falling, I knew I had to get back up. At first, it was incredibly tough. I spent evenings crying, reliving our experiences over and over. I felt so lost. But deep down, I knew I'd to keep going. I jumped into new interests, seeking to find pieces of me that I'd overlooked. I learned to like being alone, discovering power in myself. Every day was a challenge, but I battled for my pleasure. "Why did you do this to me?" I shouted at the empty room, feeling the weight of his dishonesty. But I soon understood that my worth wasn't related to his deeds. Love can be lovely, but it can also hurt like a dagger. This fact didn't come easy, but with each small win, I grew stronger. I started trusting myself again, setting limits and noticing red signs. One day, I looked in the mirror and thought, "You deserve better." I sensed a spark of comprehension. My path wasn't simply about finding love, it was about appreciating myself first. I came out of this stronger, ready to tackle anything. My experiences shaped me, teaching me to appreciate my heart and approach love with both hope and care. As I walked through the packed farmer's market one bright afternoon, the fragrance of fresh fruits and veggies filled the air, blending with the laughing of families all around. I felt a flurry of feelings. Just weeks previously, I'd been shattered by deception. But today, I was ready to go on. That's when I met him. I spotted a tall man, confident and relaxed, browsing at the colorful stalls. Our eyes connected, and he smiled at me. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. I took a step closer, my heart thumping. "Hey, what's your favorite fruit?" I asked, trying to seem nonchalant. "Definitely strawberries. Sweet and a touch sour," he said, chuckling. "I'm Jake, by the way." We started talking, exchanging our favorite cuisines. His laughing was contagious, and for a time, I forgot my concerns. But then, a recollection hit me like a punch. The treachery that had crushed my faith. Could I really open up to someone new? "Do you believe in second chances?" Jake abruptly inquired, his eyes probing me. I halted. I don't know. People can be cruel." He nodded, understanding. "Yeah, they can. But occasionally, you have to take a leap of faith." As we talked, I felt a spark of hope. I was startled by how easy it was to connect with him. But doubt crept in. What if I was just setting myself up for heartbreak again? Before we separated, he gave me his phone. "Let's exchange numbers," he added with a grin. I stopped, then entered my number in. My heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. What if this was a mistake? I felt a spark with Jake, but doubt started seeping in like shadows. His grin brightened up my world and his laughing made my heart race. But as we talked, those troublesome questions started to surface. What if he was just like the others? What if he broke my heart like my ex did? I shook my head, attempting to drive those thoughts away. I wanted to enjoy what we had, but worry adhered to me like a heavy cloak. My ex had offered me everything, then betrayed my trust. Could I truly trust Jake? My mind swarmed with thoughts. "Do you really mean it?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Of course, I'm not like your ex," Jake said, his eyes honest. But still, doubt nagged at me. As we shared experiences, a mix of exhilaration and anxiety simmered inside me. Every look from Jake seemed like a trap. Would I end up hurt again? I wanted to believe he was different, but every seductive word was laced with anxiety. I couldn't help but analyze every word. "Are you sure you want this?" I asked, my heart racing. "Yes, I genuinely like you," he added. But the uncertainty remained. I wanted to delve into this new connection, but the fear of falling held me back. I was on a tightrope, weighing hope and terror. Could I let my heart open again? I wanted for love, but those doubts spoke, reminding me of my tragic history. Suddenly, Jake leaned in closer. "Let's just take a chance," he murmured, his voice low. I halted. What if I was just setting myself up for another heartbreak? But staring into his eyes, I saw a spark of something real. "Okay," I responded, taking a large breath. "But if you hurt me, I won't forgive you." "Deal," he said with a grin. But in the back of my mind, the shadows still flickered, informing me that trust was a fragile thing. When I finally believed I could trust Jake, the images of my former relationships came flooding back, like a tremendous wave. I felt those old shadows coming in, reminding me of the hurt that still hovered around me. I'd trust problems, and every time Jake smiled, I couldn't help but wonder whether he'd hurt me like my exes did. It was like I was locked in a video game, replaying the same level over and over, unable to escape the anguish. "I want to believe in us, Jake," I remarked one night, my voice trembling. "But what if you're just like the others?" He scowled, his eyes seeking mine. "I'm not them. Give me a chance." But could I? This recovery process was rough. I wanted to go on, but those old hurts kept bringing me back like thick chains. I pushed myself to keep going, but the deeper I looked, the more I saw how afraid I actually was. I wanted love again, but fear held me close. Every date with Jake felt like a test. I tried to enjoy it, but the demons of my past tormented me. I questioned everything he stated. "Are you sure you really care?" I asked, my heart racing. He groaned, a mix of annoyance and fear on his face. "I'm here, aren't I? I'm not going anywhere." But deep inside, I wondered whether I was just setting myself up for another loss. I tried to think positively, assuring myself that I could learn from what had happened before. Yet, the desperation tugged at me. Would I ever trust again? It seemed like a heavy weight, pushing me down. I realized I must face my worries. I'd to face my history if I wanted to find the love I earned. "Let's talk about it," Jake murmured one evening, shattering the stillness. "I want to help you." "Help me?" I laughed, my heart racing. "How can you help when I don't even trust myself?" He took a step closer, resolve in his eyes. "You won't know unless you try. Let's confront it together." Navigating new feelings felt like entering into a maze, especially after the wreckage of my former relationships. Every time I thought about becoming close to someone, my pulse raced. But so did my concerns. Can I trust them? Will they hurt me? These questions tormented me like ghosts. I knew I must set restrictions. No more getting hurt. I promised myself. But it wasn't easy. I wanted to show my real self, but the dread of being rejected held me back. What if they leave? I couldn't let that happen again. I watched for signals, looking for trends that could trap me as before. Every link I examined came with a mix of exhilaration and dread. Is this love, or just trouble? The thrill was like a roller coaster, but the worry of betrayal hung over me like a dark cloud. I wanted solutions, a clear road forward. But life is full of twists and turns. Stay in control. I admonished myself, even as my heart begged to jump. I'd gotta discover a new way. I refused to let my past steal my future. "I'm building a new foundation," I stated, determined to let trust grow and love bloom. But then, things became difficult. "You really think you can trust me?" a voice muttered, sending chills down my spine. I turned to see a fresh face, gorgeous but threatening. "What do you want?" I shot back, my guard up. "I just want to know you better," they said, a wicked smile coming across their face. My instincts shouted at me to run. But interest tugged at me too. I was torn. As we spent more time together, the lines vanished. This feels right, I thought, but deep inside, an alarm bell rang. I observed the way they swayed others with easy charm, and my heart raced. "Don't fall for it," I whispered to myself. Then came the moment that broke everything. I overheard them joking with someone else, planning something behind my back. Betrayal hit me like a punch. I can't believe I let this happen again. I felt the old wounds returning. "Why did you lie?" I approached them, rage seething inside. Their smile disappeared, replaced by a chilly gaze. "You were just a game to me," they added, and my heart fell. Heartbreak rushed over me, but I wouldn't let it crush me. "I'm stronger than this," I swore. I'd rise from the ashes of betrayal, determined to find real love, the type that doesn't hurt. While I was getting to know Mark, something felt odd. I tried to push it aside. but the indications were plain. He was charming, yet there were occasions that made my stomach churn, like when his phone buzzed. He'd take a quick glimpse and his face would shift. Why did he look worried? That felt like a red flag. Then there were his statements regarding his ex-girlfriend, Jenna. They were short, but I caught a flash in his eyes. Was it nostalgia? Regret? I couldn't tell, but it sent chills down my spine. I pushed those thoughts away, trying to think he was different. But the more I ignored my gut, the more red flags sprang up. He'd step out to take calls, and when he came back, he felt distant, almost like a stranger. I felt like I was losing in a game I didn't even want to play. I wanted to believe him, but every time I pushed aside my worries, I felt weaker. One night, while we watched a movie, my heart raced. I needed answers, but fear had me bound like glue. I couldn't ignore these thoughts any longer. I'd gotta face my problems before they took me whole. I wouldn't allow myself be astonished again. "Mark," I murmured, my voice trembling. "What's going on with you? You seem strange." He looked at me, surprise flashing in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "You're private. You act odd when your phone buzzes. And what about Jenna?" I blurted out, my heart thumping. He hesitated, his expression hardening. "It's not what you think. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" I pressed, my heart racing. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I can't just explain it. You wouldn't comprehend." "Try me," I yelled back, my voice harder than I meant. He turned aside, and I felt my chest stiffen. This wasn't right. I needed to know the truth, even if it hurt. I couldn't let his falsehoods capture me. "Mark, if you don't tell me, I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice firm. He faced me, and for a minute I saw a flicker of something. Fear? Guilt? "Fine," he said. "But you might regret asking." The sting of dishonesty from Mark still seared in my chest, but I was determined to find out the truth. What was he hiding? Why did he stare at his phone like it held the keys to the universe? It was time to dig in and recover my authority. Jenna's admonition resonated in my head. "Stay away from Mark. He's not who you believe he is." Those words kindled a fire in me. I couldn't just disregard what he'd done. I had to confront the reality, no matter how hard it was. I started my research. I observed Mark intently. When we were together, he'd smile, but his eyes would dart away every time his phone buzzed. Was he texting someone else? The weight of falsehood pressed down on me, but I wouldn't let it break me. I called Jenna again. "What do you know about him?" I asked, my voice steady. She frowned. "Mark's a master of deceit. He doesn't care about anyone but himself." Her comments hit me like a punch. I felt my determination tighten. I wasn't going to let him win. "I'll expose him," I promised. I could feel the rush of determination build in me. I wouldn't let his lies break me. I'd soar above this disaster. The next day, I faced Mark. "Why do you always stare at your phone? Who are you hiding from?" I demanded, my heart racing. He shifted uncomfortably. "It's nothing. Just work stuff." But I could see the terror flare in his eyes. "Liar," I shot back. "I know there's more to the story." He stopped, then the truth tumbled out. "Okay, fine. I've been talking to someone else. But it's not what you think." My heart sank. "Then what's it?" "You wouldn't understand." He screamed, anger spilling over. I stood upright, rage propelling my resolve. "Try me." I stood there, my heart racing, as Mark's words filled the room. "That's in the past. You don't have to worry about her." I could feel the falsehood in his voice, heavy like a thundercloud. Confusion raced in my head. I'd deface him, but how? I remembered the techniques I learned. "Stay calm," I told myself. "Don't let rage take control." The next day, I took a deep breath. I needed answers. I approached Mark, my heart thumping. "Mark, I need to know the truth about Jenna," I continued, trying to keep my voice calm. His face grew pale, and I noticed a glimmer of terror in his eyes. "I promise, it's nothing," he repeated, but his words felt faint, like a rocket losing air. My pulse quickened. Something was off. I'd trusted him, and now I felt like an idiot. As days passed, I observed unusual things. His secretive phone calls, the sly smiles at his computer. Doubt gnawed at me. I had to find out what was truly going. That damp evening, I followed him. My heart fell when I saw him with Jenna. Anger and grief poured over me like a wave. I stormed up to him, tears flowing down my face. "How could you do this to me?" I shouted. His apologies fell flat, like whispers in a storm. How do we know when to trust our gut? It's a tough question, especially after someone harms us. I learned this lesson the hard way with Mark. I ignored the signs. My gut wrenched when I thought something was odd. But I allowed my longing for love blind me. Trusting your feelings isn't simple. We want to think the best of people, thinking they won't hurt us like before. But inside, I sensed a tiny voice saying, "Something's wrong." Every time his phone buzzed, dread filled me. My gut was attempting to warn me, but I pushed it aside. I believed I could handle my feelings, but I was wrong. Finally, I faced Mark. My heart was racing rapidly. I needed the truth. "Are you hiding something from me?" I asked. He only grinned and made empty pledges, which just stung deeper. My gut had been accurate all along, but I'd ignored it, thinking love would heal everything. When I revealed his lies, wrath poured through me. I felt hurt and tricked, but I also felt strong. I recognized my instincts were more than simply sentiments. They were a powerful weapon. What could Jenna say that would help me grasp Mark's lies? I felt a mix of anxiety and strength when I sat down with her. My heart raced. I needed the truth. Mark had broken my trust, and I was desperate for answers. I knew Jenna had the information I needed to hear. We rested on a park bench, and I noted the worry in her eyes. "Mark's not who you think he is," she murmured. I leaned in, my heart racing. "What do you mean?" I asked, desperation in my voice. Jenna took a big breath. "He uses people. He toyed with my heart before moving on to you." Her comments hit me like a dash of cold water. Anger erupted inside me. How could he do this? I believed I was special. Part of me wanted to protest, but deep down, I felt the truth in her words. "You deserve better," she remarked passionately. "He'll just hurt you like he did me." I nodded, the weight of her warning pushing down on me. It stung to hear, but I had to face it. I needed to know what was genuine, so I could start healing. After we talked, I walked away with a sorrowful heart but a better mind. I understood I'd gotta let go of Mark for good. I wouldn't let his falsehoods dominate me. I was ready to take my life back and find my own happiness. The chat with Jenna hit me hard, but it also kindled a fire inside me. I'd want to find out the truth about Mark. Her admonition resonated in my ears. "Stay away from Mark. He's not who you believe he is." I felt a burst of drive. I needed to peel back the layers of lies that surrounded us. I started digging into Mark's life, looking for indications I overlooked before. I remembered how he always appeared cryptic, dodging my questions regarding his phone. Each unresolved question seemed like a knife to my heart. I'd to trust myself again and make sure I wouldn't fall for his manipulations anymore. One night, I chose to follow him to a restaurant. Watching him laugh with Jenna made my heart sink. I couldn't hold back anymore. I marched up to him, my voice quivering with wrath. "How could you do this to me?" I shouted, tears flowing down my face. The astonished look on his face only made me angry. I'd trusted him, and he'd betrayed that trust. In that moment, I recognized I was fighting for more than just my heart. I was fighting for my dignity. Each lie he fed me was like a wall closing in on me. But I refused to be caught. I'd learn from this pain and come back stronger. Even though I felt I was ready for anything, the heartbreak of betrayal hit me like a ton of rocks. The moment I saw Mark laughing with Jenna, my heart fell. I assumed he was different, that he wouldn't hurt me like David did. But there I was, caught in place, my world crashing down around me. I'd trusted him, and he'd stabbed me in the back. "Mark, what's going on?" My voice cracked as I ran over, rage seething inside me. He turned, surprise blazing across his features. "It's not what it looks like," he exclaimed. But his words felt like knives. Tears obscured my view. "What are you talking about? I see you with her." His apologies seemed empty, like air exiting a balloon. I felt silly for believing in love. The hurt was heavy, crushing down on my chest like a rock. I needed to get away, to find a way to heal this damaged heart. Every day seemed like climbing a mountain. I battled the impulse to text him, to ask why. Instead, I pushed myself to be powerful. I will heal from this, I whispered to myself. I started penning my ideas down, pouring my emotions into the pages. I recognized that this betrayal didn't define me. I'd the power to take back my bliss. I deserved better than Mark's falsehoods. I'm done, I told myself, taking a large breath. I was ready to tackle the adventure ahead. True success starts with liking myself first. And I was determined to rise from this disaster. Watch me, I murmured to the glass, a spark of optimism blazing within me. I wouldn't allow his lies keep me down. After the betrayal, I felt absolutely broken. I didn't know who to trust anymore. But then I discovered pain may make me grow stronger. I stood up and opted to start my healing journey. Each day, I addressed my concerns and took baby steps ahead. I can't let this destroy me, I reminded myself. I learned that being upfront about my thoughts was a strength, not a problem. I started to write in my book, spewing out all my anguish. Why did you do this to me? I shouted into the pages, envisioning the person who wounded me standing right there. Each hurtful experience became a lesson. And I started to learn that it was normal to feel lost sometimes. I surrounded myself with friends who lifted me up. You've got this, they cheered. I learned to own my story, even when it was unpleasant. Facing my issues head-on, I discovered that true success isn't about avoiding pain. It's about being stronger after it. I learned to see every barrier as a chance to progress. As I pushed through my despair, I found a new type of power. You think you can break me? Think again, I said to myself, determined not to let the past govern my future. After my heart got broken, I had to put my life back together. It wasn't easy. I thought love from someone else would replace the hollow spot inside me. But I was incorrect. I needed to learn to love myself first. It was hard. I faced my fears and all the things I didn't like about me. In those lonely days, I learned to see my worth. I praised the tiny wins, like getting out of bed or attempting something new. I understood that getting better takes time, and not every day would be a triumph. I had to forgive myself for the past and understand that I earned happiness, even if others didn't see it. Every effort I made towards self-love felt like breaking free from chains. I began to set restrictions. No more lies, I promised myself. I focused on what made me feel good. I picked up new activities, hung out with pals, and preferred my own company. This adventure is far from over. I discovered true strength comes from inside. I don't need someone else to make me full. I'm already whole. Self-love isn't selfish, I told my image. It's about accepting who I am, flaws and all, and standing strong in my truth. But then, just when I believed I was safe, someone from my past slithered back in. I missed you, they added, with a smile that didn't reach their eyes. I felt a cold. Was it real or just manipulation? My heart raced. Trust difficulties crept back, trying to pull me down again. Not this time, I said to myself. I wouldn't fall for the same techniques. This time, I was ready to battle for my happiness. When I finally addressed my anguish, I recognized something important. It could either shatter me or make me stronger. The betrayal impacted hard, but instead of letting it crush me, I opted to transform that hurt into fuel for my progress. I realized that painful growth is genuine. It may lead to power. Each cry I shed taught me about my own value. I found emotional resilience during that awful moment. I didn't want to be a victim of someone else's decisions anymore. I wanted to rise from the ashes and take back my happiness. Every day, I convinced myself that my history didn't define me. It was merely a step on my road to being who I wanted to be. I started creating boundaries, saying no to things that weren't appropriate for me. I learned to trust my senses, to recognize red flags, and to listen to my gut. Each activity made me more confident. I discovered I could use my anguish as motivation. I concentrated on what genuinely mattered me, goals and my self-worth. As I pulled myself up from the ashes of my past, I knew I had to set new ambitions. I couldn't keep thinking about how Mark had fooled me. No way. I had to focus on me and what I desired for my future. Goal setting became my lifeblood. It was time to take back my life and seek for something greater. First, I took a notebook and put down precise goals. I wanted to rekindle my passions and find what made me happy again. I established fitness objectives to get stronger and healthier because I wanted that boost of confidence. I even signed up for a drawing class. I'd always wanted to try it. With every brushstroke, I felt a bit more of my pain wash away. But it wasn't just about the enjoyable stuff. I set internal goals too. I wanted pals who'd lift me up, not bring me down. I started cutting off poisonous links, notably Mark. I was done with his shadow hanging over me. I worked on developing a solid support group, people who encouraged me on. Every objective I hit felt like progress, like I was putting the parts back together. I learned to embrace the tiny successes. Each one mattered. My journey of creating goals wasn't only about continuing on. It was about transforming my life. No longer was I a victim of deception. I was a warrior on a mission. "Hey, you're doing amazing," my friend Sarah commented one day after my painting lesson. I smiled, feeling a flush of pride. "Thanks, it feels nice to create again," I said, my heart brimming with hope. Setting new goals was simply the start of my journey to find my happiness again. After the loss with Mark, I felt like I was lost. But I realized I had to focus on myself. I felt hurt, but I was eager to recover my confidence. I took a big breath and faced my worries. I persuaded myself I was worthy, no matter what had happened. I started tiny. Every day, I stood in front of the mirror and recited my mantras. "I am strong," I cried. "I deserve happiness." At first, it felt foolish, but gradually, those words started to stay. I reached out to folks who drew me up, not dragged me down. Their cheers helped me feel stronger. I chose to try new things. I started a painting class and signed up for hiking. Each tiny step was a success. I learned I could have fun and enjoy life, even without Mark. It felt fantastic to know I didn't need someone else to tell me I was valuable. Accepting independence became a priority for me after Mark crushed my heart. I couldn't lean on anyone else for happiness anymore. His betrayal hurt, and I knew I had to dig deep to discover power inside myself. I learned to be alone, allowing myself feel the sadness but also making place for healing. I spent solitary hours writing in my diary, thinking about my objectives, and finding who I truly was without Mark's shadow hanging over me. Reclaiming my dreams became my objective. I wanted to travel, try new things, and focus on myself. So, I signed up for a local art class, something I always wanted to do but never had the guts to do. Each brushstroke felt like breaking free. I learned to like being by myself, finding satisfaction in tiny things, like sipping coffee and watching the world pass by. I figured out that independence isn't only about being alone. It's about feeling strong. It's about standing tall, addressing concerns, and going after what I want without needing anyone's approval. I set goals, big and little, and honored every win, no matter how tiny. I'm not defined by Mark or his choices. I assured myself. I'm tougher than I thought. Accepting independence allowed me to reconstruct my life on my own terms, creating a future full of chances. I felt ready to face whatever happened next, knowing I could manage it all alone. And just when I thought I was free, Mark turned up again, attempting to win me back. "I've changed," he remarked, his voice oozing with charm. But I remembered the hurt, the falsehoods, and the trust that was violated. "No more games, Mark," I shouted, my heart pumping. "I'm not falling for that again." While I was gathering up the pieces of my life, I recognized that success for me had to alter. It wasn't about showing off or getting in. It was about finding who I really was. After my heart got broken, I felt lost, yet deep down, I knew I had to regain my strength. I started small, setting minor goals. I focused on what I loved, writing and touring. Each time I took a step, I felt like I was coming closer to understanding myself. I needed to grow and learn to love myself, even with my shortcomings. I didn't need Mark or anyone else to make me feel worthy. I tackled my fears head-on. The sensations of embarrassment and loneliness tried to control me, but I kicked those feelings away and replaced them with drive. I was ready to rise up from the ashes of my past. I discovered friends who backed me, who lifted me up. Their encouragement told me that I wasn't alone in this fight. I also took time to think. I started writing. I scribbled down my thoughts, my aspirations, and my concerns. Seeing my growth inspired me. I learned that true success wasn't only about winning. It was about finding satisfaction inside myself. Now, I stand tall and proud of who I've become. It hasn't been easy, but every challenge taught me something vital. Achieving personal success entails accepting who I am and celebrating my growth. And that victory? No one can take that away from me. As I moved forward in my journey of self-discovery, I recognized I had let go of poisonous connections. Mark had seemed wonderful at first, but as I got to know him better, I found a web of falsehoods. I felt betrayed and perplexed. I realized I'd gotta act. I couldn't let his lies trap me any longer. Breaking up with Mark was one of the hardest choices I ever made. My heart hurt, but I understood that sticking with someone who didn't appreciate me would simply keep me in a circle of agony. I remembered all the times I felt worried, when my instinct told me something was odd. I had to trust myself. I deserved better. When I finally let go of that poisonous relationship, I felt a flood of relief rush over me. It was like coming up for air after being held underwater. I started focused on me. I surrounded myself with individuals that supported me and got into activities that made me smile. I learned to recognize my own worth and found strength in being on my own. Letting go wasn't only about terminating things with Mark. It was about taking back my life. I learned that true success requires putting my happiness first. I vowed myself I'd never settle for less than I deserved. Leaving behind the toxicity unlocked doors I never knew were there. I was ready to receive the love and joy I'd always sought. After breaking free from Mark's lies, I knew I'd have redefined my worth. I felt broken, but I refused to stay down. This was my time. I couldn't allow his betrayal tell me who I was. I grabbed a piece of paper and put out my strengths: humorous, kind, talented. I deserved love, respect, and honesty. Every day, I faced my feelings. It was challenging. I cried, I screamed, and I felt lost. But through that upheaval, I learned my strength. I learned to stand tall, even when I felt small. I transformed my hurt into power. I recognized that my worth wasn't related to anyone else's perception of me. Then, I took a leap. I signed up for an art class, something I always wanted to do. Painting became my getaway. With each brush stroke, I poured out my sentiments. Slowly, I filled my life with pleasant vibes. I surrounded myself with individuals that pulled me up and reminded me of my value. I started to believe in myself again. Mark felt I was weak, but he didn't realize my power. I refused to let his behaviors define me. I was taking back my story. I learned my worth came from within, not from someone else's approval. As I started my adventure, I felt strong. I was ready to show everyone what true success looked like. "Look at me now, Mark," I shouted to the empty room, feeling the heat inside me. I was no longer a victim. I was a warrior, rising from the darkness, ready to face the light. With my newfound strength, I recognized that true happiness wasn't simply about moving on. It was about grasping life by the horns. After Mark broke my heart, I plunged into a path of self-discovery. I realized that happiness comes from inside me, not from anyone else. I depended on others for too long, and now it was my chance to take back my joy. Each day seemed like a war. I tackled my anxieties and uncertainties straight on. I started jotting down my thoughts. It helped me organize the jumble inside my thoughts. I found things I loved like painting and hiking, and I chased those hobbies like a dog pursuing a ball. I surrounded myself with friends who lifted me up. "You deserve to be happy," they'd yell, and their words resonated in my heart. But I also learned to like being alone. It wasn't lonely, it was silent. I learned that I might be happy with just myself. True happiness isn't a finish line. It's a chaotic ride with bumps and curves. I learned to cheer for the tiny wins and find beauty in everyday circumstances. I started to embrace myself, warts and all. I understood I was enough, exactly as I was. Now, I wake up every day eager to take on the world. I'm not seeking for happiness outside of me. Instead, I'm living in the moment, thankful for every small thing. This is what real happiness looks like, and I won't let anyone steal it from me again. But just when I believed I was safe, the ghosts of my past came back. Mark texted me one night, "I miss you." My heart surged, but I remembered the falsehood. I said, "You can't just waltz back in after what you did." He shot back, "I've changed. Give me a chance." I felt the usual tug of cunning. Was he really different? My trust problems arose, but I kept tough. I wouldn't fall for his poison charm again. "Trust is earned, Mark," I typed, my hands quivering. I hit send. The calm that followed seemed weighty. I knew I'd to keep my guard up. True happiness is worth fighting for. And I wasn't ready to allow anyone, not even him, take that away from me. I used to be terrified of letting people in. Opening up was like standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to jump. But after Mark, I realized I'd to alter. I wanted people who drew me up, not dragged me down. No more games with my heart. I signed up for classes that made my heart race painting and cooking. Each brushstroke and every stir of the pot linked me to fresh faces. Laughter filled the air as we crafted masterpieces together. But it wasn't all fun. I quickly found that not everyone had good reasons. One day, I met Sarah. She seemed sweet at first, but soon, her smile felt like a facade. "Let's be best friends," she urged, but I felt something odd. The more time we spent together, the more I heard her whispers behind my back and the way she'd smile when I tripped. Was this friendship or a trap? "Why are you acting weird?" I asked her one afternoon. "You've changed." "Oh, come on, you're just being emotional," she yelled, but her eyes gave her everything. I felt the deception sting. I believed I was gaining trust, but instead, I was ensnared in a web of trickery. Despite the hurt, I kept pushing forward. Each new friendship convinced me I deserved better. I found people who actually cared, who backed me without ulterior motivations. "You're stronger than you think," one buddy told me, and it kindled a fire in my heart. Opening up was still painful, but I refused to let fear win. I was on a journey, and I knew I must keep going. Each link I made confirmed my strength. I wasn't simply looking for love. I was developing a community that inspired me to grow. "Let's face whatever comes next together," I said to my new buddies, and they nodded in accord. I was ready to battle for what I earned. No more poisoned love, no more games. This time, I'd stand tall. Heartbreak hit me hard, and I never saw it coming. I thought I knew love until I met Mark. He seemed terrific at first, but then he lied. When I found out, it felt like my whole world crashed. "How could you do this?" I shouted, my heart pumping. I felt crushed and bewildered, wondering my worth. But I wasn't going to remain down. I dried my tears and took a big breath. "This isn't the end," I told myself. I discovered heartbreak wasn't only about losing someone. It was about finding myself. I learned to trust my gut. The signals had been there, but I disregarded them, dreaming of a flawless conclusion. "Listen to yourself next time," I assured. Each cry I wept felt like a step toward a stronger self. I learned to stick up for myself. "No more settling for less," I announced. I wanted someone who respected me, not someone who messed with my feelings. As I looked back, I realized love shouldn't feel frightened or unsure. I deserve better. I shouted in my chamber. I accepted my independence and knew my worth. Heartbreak can break you, but it can also teach you crucial lessons. I emerged out of the darkness with a greater idea of what I desired. My heart was broken, but I found strength I didn't know I possessed. And that was my victorious story worth telling. When I think of my challenging moments, I know I need to share my story. It's replete with lessons about standing back up after feeling absolutely broken. After my heart was broken, I put myself into healing. I tried many techniques to mend my heart and spirit. During this journey, I realized how crucial it's to create limits in relationships. I understood that trusting someone again wasn't going to happen in a day. It took time and work, little by little. As I went through the agony, I focused on getting stronger. I searched for methods to feel powerful again. I learned that real strength comes from inside myself. I learned that my worth isn't dependent on what others believe. Each challenge I faced converted into a lesson, and every setback was a chance to improve my life for the better. When I open up about my story, I see hope flare in others' eyes. They can see their own fights in my words. I want them to know they're not alone. If I can get up after everything, so can they. We have to know that pain doesn't stay forever. We can come out stronger, ready to meet new challenges and build better lives. My narrative shows that courage is achievable, shining like a star for those still lost in the dark. Let's walk this journey together, knowing we can transform our lives for the better. Success feels like the first warm rays of sun after a frigid winter. I finally reached a stage where I can brag about my wins, and it feels fantastic. I didn't just pick up the pieces after loss. I converted my anguish into strength. I employed clever strategies like having defined goals and breaking them down into tiny chunks. Each little triumph strengthened my confidence and drove me to keep pushing. I started journaling and practicing mindfulness, attempting to comprehend my thoughts. It wasn't just about going on. It was about getting stronger. I looked back at my past, learned from my failures, and swore myself I wouldn't fall for the same traps again. Writing about my feelings made me feel lighter, like I was taking off layers of misery. Now, I can see how much I've achieved. I've constructed a new life full of optimism and joy. I appreciate my achievements by remaining close to friends and family that lift me up. They remind me of my worth when self-doubt attempts to seep in. I've learned to cheer for every little accomplishment, whether it's earning a new job or just enjoying a tear-free day. I want everyone to realize that appreciating success isn't solely about large wins. It's about noticing every step forward, no matter how minor. I'm proud of my trip, and I won't allow anyone dim my light. This is my opportunity to shine, and I'll keep celebrating every win along the way.